What if the deadliest secrets are not buried in some forgotten forest? What if they are not locked away in a hidden vault, miles from civilization? Instead, what if they are right next door? Imagine the house you pass every single day on your walk, the one with the perfectly manicured lawn, the friendly wave from the window. You think you know your neighbors, you exchange pleasantries over the fence, you see them getting their mail, washing their car, living a life that looks just like yours. But behind that ordinary facade, a dark and terrifying truth could be festering, hidden in plain sight. The truth is, some of the most monstrous criminals in history were not lurking in the shadows. They were living among us. They went to work every morning. They attended neighborhood barbecues. They raised families under the same roof where they concealed the evidence. These individuals perfected the art of deception, creating a convincing illusion of normalcy. While the keys to solving their crimes lay just a few feet away, it's a chilling thought that the answer could be buried in a quiet backyard, or tucked away in a dusty attic, just waiting to be found. This is a journey into ordinary places that became tombs for terrible secrets. We will explore homes, yards, workplaces. For years, sometimes even decades, these clues were overlooked. They were stepped over, walked past, and completely ignored by friends, family, and even the police. It's a disturbing testament to how easily evil can disguise itself as the mundane, how the most shocking discoveries can be made in the most familiar settings. The monster isn't always a stranger, sometimes it's the person you thought you knew. We often believe a crime scene is cordoned off with yellow tape right after the act. But what happens when the crime scene is a home, and the perpetrator continues to live there? The evidence doesn't just disappear. It becomes part of the furniture. It gets absorbed into the daily routine of the household. A strange smell is explained away. A locked room is just for storage. A freshly dug patch of dirt in the garden is for new rose bushes. In these stories, the proof of guilt wasn't just left behind, it was lived with, day in and day out. A constant, silent presence in an otherwise ordinary life. Tonight, we are not just telling stories, we are peeling back the layers of deception to reveal the shocking truths that were hidden right under everyone's noses. We will count down the 5 most chilling cases where criminals thought they had committed the perfect crime, all while living alongside the very evidence that would eventually expose them. These are not tales of intricate heists or elaborate escapes. These are raw, disturbing accounts of how killers and kidnappers used their own homes as personal graveyards and storage lockers for their darkest secrets, banking on the simple idea that no one would ever think to look so close. The rules for our countdown are simple. We will journey from case number 5 all the way to the most terrifying case at number 1. Each story is ranked based on the shocking audacity of the criminal, the length of time they got away with their secret, and the sheer proximity of the hidden evidence to their everyday life. We will delve into the minds of these individuals and the investigations that were stumped for years. We will walk through the very rooms where unspeakable acts occurred and then were simply covered up with a rug or a fresh coat of paint. Prepare yourself for a descent into the unsettling reality of domestic horror. You will hear the details of the investigations, the near misses where police were just inches from the truth, and the stunning moments of discovery that finally brought justice to light. These are the stories that prove the old saying, the truth will always find a way out. Even when it's buried 6 feet under in a suburban garden, hidden within the walls of a family home, or tucked away in a locker at a busy workplace, it leaves a trace. It waits patiently for the right person to notice the one small detail that's out of place. So, lock your doors, look around your own home, and wonder what secrets the walls could tell. As we begin our countdown, remember that for the victims in these stories, and the families left behind, the nightmare was all too real, and it all started in a place that was supposed to be safe. A place they called home. Our countdown begins now, with a case that took investigators on a perplexing journey that ended right back where it all began, inside a house that held a ghastly secret for far too long. This is our countdown of evil hidden in plain sight. Our countdown begins at number 5 with a case that unfolded in the seemingly quiet city of Gloucester, England. Here, on a perfectly ordinary residential street named Cromwell Street, stood a house that appeared no different from its neighbors. Number 25 was a modest, unassuming, brick home. It was the kind of place you would walk past without a second thought, a typical part of the sleepy urban landscape. This house was home to Fred and Rose West, a couple who, to the outside world, were just trying to get by. They had a large family, and their home was often filled with the noise and chaos of many children. Life on Cromwell Street seemed routine, even mundane, but behind the peeling paint and the drawn curtains of number 25, a sinister reality was festering. Fred West was known in the neighborhood as a bit of an odd job man, a builder who was always digging and making alterations to his property. His constant construction projects were a familiar sight. Neighbors saw him as a bit eccentric, perhaps, but harmless. Rose was often seen with her children, a mother trying to manage a boisterous household. They were fixtures in the community, living a life that was deeply intertwined with the very fabric of the neighborhood. No one could have possibly imagined the horrors that were taking place within those four walls. The West's life was a carefully constructed performance. They presented a facade of a struggling but normal working-class family. Their home, however, was not a sanctuary. It was a place of unimaginable cruelty and violence, shielded from the world by the simple fact that no one ever thought to look closer. The strange noises heard by neighbors were dismissed as family disputes. The odd smells were attributed to Fred's shoddy plumbing work. Every sign, every subtle clue that something was deeply wrong, was explained away by the mundane routines of everyday life. For years, this house stood as a silent witness to unspeakable crimes. The true nature of 25 Cromwell Street was a secret held tightly by the family who lived there. The children were raised in an environment of fear and silence, conditioned not to speak of the things they saw and heard. The house itself became a character in this terrifying story, its rooms and its very structure altered to conceal the evidence of Fred and Rose's evil. The cellar was converted into a makeshift torture chamber. The garden was turned into a private cemetery. The monster wasn't just living in the house. The house had become a part of the monster, its bricks and mortar complicit in hiding a truth too horrific to comprehend. For years, the secrets of 25 Cromwell Street remained buried, both literally and figuratively. Several of the West's own children had disappeared over time, but their departures were explained away with plausible stories. They had run off. They had found a job elsewhere. They had started a new life. In a chaotic household with many children coming and going, it seemed almost believable. Even when Fred West faced accusations of abuse against his own daughters, the full scope of his depravity remained hidden. The justice system saw a dysfunctional family, but they did not see the serial killers living in plain sight. The beginning of the end for Fred and Rose West came not from a brilliant piece of police detective work, but from a desperate plea. One of their daughters, who had been subjected to years of horrific abuse, finally found the courage to speak up. She told authorities a story so vile, so disturbing, that it was initially hard to believe. She spoke of her missing sister, Heather, who had vanished in 1987. The official story was that Heather had taken a job at a holiday resort, but the daughter knew the truth. She told the police that she had heard screams one night, and that afterward, she never saw Heather again. More chillingly, she told them her father had joked about burying Heather under the patio. This one statement was the key that would unlock the house of horrors. It was a specific, testable claim. It pointed investigators not to some remote wilderness, but to the family's own backyard. The police, now armed with a search warrant, arrived at 25 Cromwell Street in February 1994. Fred West, ever the confident manipulator, was calm. He denied everything. He watched as officers began to survey his property, the very ground he had walked on for years, the ground that held his darkest secrets. He seemed to believe he could talk his way out of this, just as he had done so many times before. He underestimated the power of his daughter's words. The initial search was focused and methodical. The police were looking for one thing: the remains of Heather West. They brought in excavation equipment and began the grim task of digging up the garden and the patio. Neighbors gathered, watching in disbelief as the police cordon went up, and their quiet street was transformed into a major crime scene. They couldn't fathom what the police could be looking for. To them, it was just Fred West's messy backyard, the site of his endless half-finished projects. They had no idea they were about to witness the unearthing of a nightmare that had been growing right next to them for decades. The digging began in the back garden. The air was thick with tension. Fred West, who was present during the initial search, continued to offer nonchalant explanations. He claimed that any bones they found would be from animals. He had buried pets there over the years, he said. He acted as if the whole affair was a ridiculous misunderstanding. His arrogance was a mask, a final desperate attempt to maintain control. He watched as the shovel bit into the earth. It did not take long for the first horrifying discovery to be made. Buried beneath the patio, investigators found human bones. They were dismembered, a clear sign of a violent death and a deliberate, gruesome concealment. The initial find was confirmed to be the partial remains of a young woman. The search intensified. The garden had been used for children's play. The garden had been used for family gatherings. It was now giving up its dead. The discovery of Heather West's remains was just the beginning. It was the first domino to fall. Once they found one body, police searched the entire property. Excavation expanded from the garden. Excavation moved to the cellar of the house. Excavation reached the bathroom flooring. Fred West's history as a builder took on a terrifying new meaning. His renovations were opportunities to create hidden tombs. He used concrete and construction to entomb victims within his home. He turned the house into a macabre mausoleum. As days turned into weeks, the body count grew. One victim was found under the garden shed. Another was discovered buried in the cellar. 2 more were unearthed in the garden. The sheer number of bodies was staggering. The garden at 25 Cromwell Street was not a place of life, but a graveyard. Flowers and plants grew over a bed of bones. Their roots were entangled with the evidence of a decades-long killing spree. The house that had hidden so much evil was finally being forced to give up its secrets. With the garden yielding its ghastly secrets, the focus of the investigation turned inward, to the house itself. If Fred West had used his backyard as a burial ground, what horrors might be concealed inside the home where he and Rose raised their children? Investigators, now treating the entire property as a massive, complex gravesite, began to dismantle the house piece by piece. The cellar was the first area of intense focus. It was a dark, damp space that the children had been terrified of. And for good reason. After breaking through the concrete floor, search teams made another grim discovery. They found more dismembered human remains. The search moved upstairs to the first-floor bathroom. Here, another body was found, encased in concrete beneath the floor. Each discovery was more shocking than the last. Police realized they were dealing with killers who were prolific and brazen. They didn't bother to transport their victims to a remote location. They simply brought them home, murdered them, and integrated their remains into the fabric of the house. The house on Cromwell Street was a monument to their evil. It was a place where domestic life and serial murder coexisted in the most horrifying way imaginable. The evidence had been there all along, under the patio, in the garden, beneath the floors. It had been stepped on, lived over, and completely ignored for years. The discoveries at 25 Cromwell Street sent shockwaves across the United Kingdom and the world. The story of Fred and Rose West became a symbol of hidden evil, of the monster next door. Fred West was charged with 12 murders and Rose West with 10. The full scale of their crimes, spanning over 2 decades, was finally laid bare. The investigation revealed a horrifying pattern of abduction, abuse, murder, often targeting young women and even their own children. Fred West would never face a jury. On January 1st, 1995, while awaiting trial, he took his own life in his prison cell. He took with him the answers to many questions. Rose West, however, did face justice. In November 1995, she was convicted of 10 murders, including that of her own daughter, Heather. She was sentenced to life in prison. The house itself, now infamous as the House of Horrors, could not be allowed to stand. It had become a morbid tourist attraction, a constant and painful reminder of the evil it had contained. In 1996, the local council made the decision to demolish it. The structure was systematically torn down, brick by brick, until nothing was left. The ground was leveled and the space where the House of Horrors once stood was transformed into a public walkway. It was an attempt to erase the physical scar from the community. The case of Fred and Rose West is a terrifying lesson in the deceptive nature of evil. It demonstrates how the most grotesque crimes can be hidden behind a veil of absolute normalcy. For 20 years, the evidence was right there, buried just feet from where children played. Neighbors chatted over the fence. The Wests got away with it for so long because no one could conceive of such horror existing in such an ordinary setting. The house on Cromwell Street is gone, but its chilling legacy remains a stark reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones who are hiding in plain sight. Our countdown continues as we move to case number 4, Sacramento, California, a boarding house that offered a safe haven for the city's most vulnerable. The property was owned and managed by a woman named Dorothea Puente. In her late 50s, Dorothea presented herself as a kind, grandmotherly figure, pillar of the local social work community, known for taking in tenants who had nowhere else to go. She would frequently donate to local charities. She was well known to social workers who referred clients to her boarding house. Her boarders were often elderly, disabled, struggling with addiction. To the outside world, Dorothea was a saint, a charitable soul providing shelter and care. Her 3-story Victorian home was seen as a refuge. She went to great lengths to cultivate her image as a caring matriarch. She provided them with meals, companionship, a roof over their heads. She managed their finances, cashing Social Security checks and giving small stipends. It seemed like a practical arrangement built on trust. No one questioned her spotless reputation, but beneath that facade, a cold, calculating predator was at work. Dorothea Puente was not a savior. Sa fortseis invitan sachan. On her boarding house was not a sanctuary, it was a deadly trap. The people she took in were often disconnected from family. The perfect victims, disappearances easily unnoticed. The house, large, imposing Victorian, held its secrets. Numerous rooms, a cluttered basement, a garden frequently dug up. Dorothea often seen working in her yard, turning over soil. Neighbors saw a dedicated gardener. They didn't know each fresh patch hid evidence. The home was her hunting ground. The garden, her private cemetery, hidden in plain sight on a busy city street. The unraveling of Dorothea Puente's sinister operation began not with a major police investigation, but with the concern of a single social worker. One of the tenants, a man with developmental disabilities named Alvaro Montoya, had suddenly vanished. The social worker assigned to his case found his disappearance suspicious. When she questioned Dorothea about his whereabouts, the landlady had a ready-made story. She claimed that Alvaro had gone on a long trip to visit family in Mexico. It was a plausible explanation, but something about it didn't sit right. The social worker persisted, filing a missing person report with the Sacramento Police Department, an act that would ultimately bring Puente's world crashing down. On November 11, 1988, police arrived at the F Street boarding house to inquire about Alvaro Montoya. Dorothea was cooperative and charming, inviting the officers in and assuring them there was nothing to worry about. While there, the officers noticed something odd. There was a patch of recently disturbed soil in the garden. When they asked about it, Dorothea casually dismissed their concerns, claiming she had been getting rid of old junk and tree roots. She even playfully handed an officer a shovel and joked that they should dig all they want. Her confidence was unnerving, a calculated bluff to throw them off her trail. Despite her calm demeanor, the police decided to take her up on the offer. Detective John Cabrera, one of the lead investigators, began to dig in the spot she had indicated. It didn't take long for his shovel to hit something. It wasn't a rock or a tree root, it was fabric, and it was wrapped around something that felt disturbingly human. As he carefully cleared away the soil, the horrifying truth began to emerge. He had uncovered a human foot. The garden was not just a garden, it was a grave. The search for a missing person had just turned into a homicide investigation, and the prime suspect was the sweet old lady who owned the property. Dorothea Puente, realizing her bluff had been called and her secrets were about to be unearthed, saw her chance to escape. While the police were preoccupied with the grim discovery in her garden, the seemingly frail old woman asked for permission to go and buy a cup of coffee from a hotel across the street. In a stunning lapse of judgment, the police agreed. Dorothea calmly walked away from her house of horrors, hailed a taxi and fled the city, leaving investigators to dig up the bodies she had buried. With Dorothea Puente on the run, investigators began the gruesome task of excavating her entire yard. The scene on F Street turned into a media circus. Forensic teams in white suits methodically dug up the small plot of land. The first body they identified was not Alvaro Montoya, the man whose disappearance had triggered the search. It was a 78-year-old woman named Leona Carpenter. This discovery confirmed their worst fears. There was more than one victim. As the digging continued over the next few days, the body count rose at an alarming rate. One by one, the remains of her former tenants were unearthed from their shallow graves. A second body was found, a third, a fourth, a fifth. a sixth, and finally, a seventh. The yard, no bigger than a typical suburban garden, had been used to conceal 7 human beings. The victims had been wrapped in bed sheets, their bodies bound with tape, and buried just a few feet beneath the surface. For years, Dorothea had walked over them, tended her garden above them, lived her life as if nothing was wrong, all while collecting their social security checks. The investigation revealed the true motive for her crimes: pure greed. Dorothea Puente targeted people who received government benefits. Once they were under her roof, she would overdose them with prescription medications, wait for them to die, and then continue to cash their checks. She had stolen over $87,000 from her victims. She murdered them for a few $100s a month, a pittance for which she was willing to take a life. Her supposed charity was just a cover for a cold, calculated, long-running fraud and murder scheme. The evidence of her crimes had been right there in her garden the entire time, just beneath her prized flowers. While the city of Sacramento reeled from the horrific discoveries, a nationwide manhunt was underway for Dorothea Puente. She was eventually apprehended in Los Angeles, where a man she had met in a bar recognized her from the news reports and called the police. She was brought back to Sacramento to face justice. In 1993, she was convicted of 3 murders, though the jury was deadlocked on 6 others. Dorothea Puente was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She maintained her innocence until her death in 2011, claiming all her tenants had died of natural causes. For years, she hid her evil behind a mask of kindness and buried her victims in her own backyard. We have journeyed through a landscape of domestic horror, from the buried secrets of Cromwell Street to the sickening collection in a Milwaukee apartment. We've peeled back the wallpaper of ordinary life to find the rot underneath. Fred and Rose West, Dorothea Puente, Yuka, Martin McNeil, Jeffrey Dahmer, yet they are bound together by a single chilling thread. They all demonstrate with brutal clarity how evil does not always announce itself with a thunderclap. More often it wears a mask of profound normalcy. It's the friendly landlord, the perfect son, the respectable doctor, the quiet neighbor. It's the person you would never ever suspect. In every single case, the clues were there. Their carefully constructed facades were not perfect. There were always cracks, small fissures in the illusion of normalcy through which the truth was trying to escape. The ultimate downfall of these killers rarely came from a single brilliant moment of detective work. Instead, it was often the result of persistence. It was the persistence of Michelle McNeil's daughters, the persistence of a social worker, the bravery of Tracy Edwards. The truth was not unearthed by a single swing of a pickaxe, but by the slow, steady chipping away at a wall of lies. It reminds us that vigilance is not about paranoia, it's about paying attention to the details that don't add up. These stories are a testament to the fact that evil, no matter how well hidden, leaves a trace. As we conclude our journey, we are left with a chilling and profound question. If these people could hide such evil for so long, who else is out there, living a lie? The people in these stories did not live in a different world. They lived in our world. They walked our streets. They shopped in our grocery stores. They lived in houses just like ours. Their stories serve as a permanent haunting reminder that we can never truly know what happens behind closed doors. This exploration is not meant to make you live in fear, but to encourage a healthy sense of awareness. It's about listening to that inner voice that tells you something is wrong. The greatest defense is a community that pays attention. So tonight, when you look out your window at the houses on your street, what do you see? Do you see homes, or do you see facades? The truth is, you will never know for sure. And that is the most terrifying lesson of all. The monsters are not just in stories, they are real, they are clever, and they are patient. They know that the very best place to hide a secret is in a place no one would ever think to look. They are hiding at home.